5000/5000. Nombre maximal de caracteres, 5000. Is the theory of evolution true? So when in a series of Catholic video, I approach such a subject, we must immediately have the reflex to say, does it concern theology, or is it a subject of science? Well, the answer is that it concerns science first. It means that this question of the evolution of the living, through the centuries, does not directly concern the doctrine of salvation, except by some additional points that I will say just now. And so, one must really with his reason, to look into the validity of the theory of evolution. Here or against it, it will concern religion is when some scientists and even some theologians like Talad de Chardin, say that everything proceeds by evolution, including the human spirit. But here, the Church puts a very serious dogmatic reference recalled by Pope John Paul II's speech of October 22, 1987 to the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, where he says, the theory of evolution seems to be more than a simple hypothesis. On the other hand, if the human body has its origin in the living matter that pre-exists it, it must be affirmed that the spiritual soul of man is immediately created by God. And it is even said in Latin to show that it is a dogma animus anima Deo immediate creri Catholica fides are retenere jubet, so we must believe, Humani Generis, the encyclical of Pope Pius XII. So some will say, but we mix all the sciences. He speaks of evolution and here he pronounces himself as Pope, and then he speaks of the human soul, it is theology. In reality, the Catholic Church has the spirit of St. Thomas Aquinas. Science and faith must walk together as two affectionate people. There is no reason for contradictions, since it is God who has created our capacity to know for ourselves, and it is God who gives revelation. So, is the theory of evolution true? And it must be said that it first concerns the body, the origin of the human body. And so, not directly salvation. That God took matter directly to do that, and create the body of man, that he did it through a slow preparation of evolution, no importance for our salvation. What is science then? And obviously, the human body obviously has more than 99% of its common DNA with great apes, and on the other hand there are fossil hominids that behave like animals, so that have a human body but that have no spirit. It indicates that obviously, that our body proceeds by evolution, from this pre-existing life, and that therefore, at a given moment, we are obliged to say it, God had to take this animal life, prepared by the angels, God has infused him a spiritual soul, the original grace, and that's how Adam and Eve appeared. How did he do it? No way to find out. Is it a human monkey who gave birth to a baby who had a spiritual soul and then God raised him to give him this spiritual grace? We do not know. What, on the other hand, is probably certain is that, indeed, there is no difficulty in admitting that our body proceeds by evolution from these animal hominids. Why? Because there is nothing radically new. So some object, saying, but, yes, there are still new organs. There is for articulated language, for example, this organ that allows thousands of words to be articulated to express itself, whereas apes need only a few cries to indicate some emotions, fear, such prey, etc. Yes, it's new. But it's not radically new. It's more organized, but perhaps, as we'll see later, with genetics, it's explained by a few mutations and not a radically new DNA with millions of bases. Similarly, human sexuality is made, structured to be made, face to face, and not like animals, most of them in any case, perhaps not cetaceans but, no matter, belly against back. It means that there is, as an intention, for communication in love and not just reproduction. Answer: yes. But this change of place of an organ, well, it is also microevolution. It may be some bases, but we know very well that it is done by evolution. Cetaceans, which were at the beginning of terrestrial animals with nostrils here, have even been observed to progressively change the nostrils behind the head to breathe in the water. So that can be explained by the evolution and the laws of Darwin, which are very simple. A mutation is useful, it is kept, the rest is eliminated by natural selection, and in the end it is the most performance that remains. It is added to that obviously, some characters acquired during the life anyway marks a trace, in the offspring. This is what is called epigenetics, mutation by chance and then genetic, all that could explain the microevolutions. Does it mean that, as John Paul II says, the theory of evolution is valid on all these assertions? And I would say that, John Paul II, when he says that evolution is more than a scientific hypothesis, does not engage the magisterium. The magisterium speaks, infallibly, only of the doctrine of salvation. He engages his opinion of philosopher. So, it does not exempt us from being intelligent. That means that there are things in evolution that are difficult to explain, that some say, but it is explained, simply because first of all there is no creator and that of to be done alone. Well, it's not so simple. So-called evolution macros, for example the appearance of the eye, at the very beginning, in the primary area. In several groups of animals, highly differentiated, molluscs, the eye of the octopus is extremely efficient, vertebrates, but also articulated, like insects, and well, this extremely powerful eye, to know if it can proceed by evolution it will be necessary one day to face the DNA, the code, compare the DNA of the different eyes, in the different groups that I have just indicated and see if they contain hundreds of millions of bases, if a mechanism of evolution to Darwin can explain it. In fact, when a radically new organ emerges, which can, for example, see light in a very wide spectrum, and we are faced with what happens when new software is put into a computer. Similarly, if in a few centuries humanity has on its head a cable antenna, which can capture the internet, this antenna with, I would say, the functions of capturing Wi-Fi, it will be necessary that a radically new DNA has appeared that code all that. We can clearly see the complication. Man may be able to do this by modifying the DNA. I do not hope it would be catastrophic, but in any case, the laws of Darwin there, we cannot say that they explain that. So, we are not exempt from being smart against the wonders, evolution macros.